sometimes it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. Maybe you're a captain and you're transitioning and you think you're going to go straight to a CEO role at a company. For the most part, it's not that simple. You really have to be flexible. You have to be willing to take something that might not look exactly like you thought it would look like.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to another episode of Exit Buddy, Veteran Stories to Guide You. In our studio today, I have someone that I'm so appreciative she allowed me to stalk her on LinkedIn because I just loved her background and I thought she would be such a great guest. So I am thrilled to join me in the studio, Stephanie West, a Navy veteran who probably knows a thing or two about a good cup of coffee, being the supervisor of distribution operations at Starbucks. Stephanie, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I hear you joined the Navy at 17 through the Buddy program. And since you're joining us on Exit Buddy today, it sort of feels like fitting to sort of start with that discussion. So help people understand how a buddy helped shape your early days in the military.
Yeah, so I don't know if they still offer the program, but when I joined the Navy in 1999, me and my best friend from up the street decided to join the Navy together. And so that meant we got to leave for boot camp together, and we were able to sort of stick together throughout the whole basic training before we took different, journeys onto our jobs, our specific jobs. And so, yeah, it was very helpful having somebody that I knew going into the program with me, and it just made it a lot easier and more comfortable, especially being so young. It wasn't as scary having somebody, with you.
So, yes, always having a buddy along the way really does help. It sounds like you joined the Navy with some higher education goals in mind. So, how was the pursuit of education something that shaped your military career?
Yeah, I think for me, I always wanted to go to college, and typical small town life. One working parent. I didn't grow up in with a financial background of being able to choose whatever college I wanted to go to, so I needed to make my own way, and so I think that kind of really helped fuel my entire naval career, honestly, because I had such a passion for education. And so I basically just started with some night classes. And before I knew it, I was, achieving my associate's degree. And um, I had the college fund also when I signed up. So that was something that I had planned to use when I was planning to exit the military. But then I just kind of kept going with my education, and I had a lot of mentors along the way, just kind of encouraging me to keep working on it, and that actually led me into the opportunity of officer candidate school. So for those who aren't familiar with that, that is a program for those military members who already have a degree. They can apply from being enlisted to officer candidate school, and then they can move to the officer side of things. So yeah, that's what I did, and then even after that, I just kind of kept going. Once I became an officer and went to supply corps school, I just kept working on my master's, sort of on my own, and yeah, so I just never kind of quit, and I think that was really helpful.
Well, as my father always said, persistence and perseverance are always two things that have helped me throughout my career. And I see in my notes you went to MBA program in Italy. Is that right?
So I actually was stationed in Italy for a few years, and that's when I finished my bachelor's degree. And then after I transferred from Naples, Italy, which was amazing, by the way. I was able to come back to the States for a while, and that's when I started working on my master's in business administration through American Military University. So my journey sort of started in Italy with that, but then it finished here.
Ah, yes, Italia. Love me, Italia. So you landed at Starbucks, a company that you had been passionate about since your days in Italy. How did that passion guide you through your transition and help you secure your job?
Yeah, so I always say I was mildly obsessed with Starbucks, not just the coffee, but actually the entire business model. And seeing what Howard Schultz was trying to build then, and living in Italy, I was a huge supporter of that, bringing that to America. And so all through my MBA, I studied Starbucks. I wrote papers on the business model, and I was always amazed at how Howard Schultz was able to make such a large company feel so small. And everyone is a partner. We're not just an employee. We all have ownership in the company. And yeah, so when the opportunity came up, and I originally was trying to apply for an internship through with the Supply Corps that offers like a time at Starbucks for a year or two as an internship. Um, and then I actually ended up applying for the position, and I didn't have to do the internship. So I was able to just transition from my military time straight to my role now. And that's where I've been for the last 10 years.
Just tell us a little bit about your role right now. I mean, what is operations distribution?
Yeah, so right now I am the lead planner forecaster for all parts, for all the machines that do all of our brewing in North America. So every time you go and get that latte or that iced coffee, I'm responsible for making sure your machines are working. So that's what I do. And right now we're the only department with 9 people that services the entire North America. So it's quite a big job, and especially with we have over 10,000 stores. So it's a big operation, and with not quite so many people. So yeah, that's what I do now. And similarly, in the military, I was a supply corps officer, so I did all of the logistics, making sure we fed the troops, and ran the ship store, did all of the parts and for aircraft, and the ship, and then also before that, just kind of managing budgets and financial aspects of it. So it all kind of is aligned with what an MBA sort of entails. And so that's exactly what I did in the Navy and exactly what I'm doing now.
It really just sounds like you switched uniforms. So it sounds really great. And sometimes people want to do that, sometimes they don't. What were any of the initial surprises or culture shocks when you first entered your job at Starbucks?
Yeah, I think it's the first culture shock is just the language barrier. So, there's the corporate language, and then there's Navy language. So, sometimes I'll still slip up and say something like, oh, we don't have the manpower for that, instead of saying we don't have the labor for that. And my boss always, thinks it's hilarious when I say stuff like that. So I'd say the language is definitely a big part. Also, just navigating health insurance, that was really tricky because in the military, obviously, you have TRICARE and everything's taken care of. You get sick, you go to the doctor. Here, it's in the corporate life, it's a lot different. You're paying for your own medical. You have all these tiers. It's very convoluted. So that was a huge challenge as well. And I definitely think the leadership style was a huge transition. It actually, for me, it was better in the civilian side of things, because I'm more of like I like to involve all of my people in decision making, and so sometimes in the military, as a leader, you're sort of the sole responsible for all the decisions. And I like to have the input of everyone around me, especially when they're going to be the end user. So yeah, so those were some of the biggest things I think that were challenging when I did that transition.
You've been at Starbucks for 10 years, and you're very fortunate in the sense that, your first job out of the military, you're still there. Many of the people that we have interviewed, and I know many of the Department of Labor statistics are that 80% of military personnel leave within the first year of their new job, mainly because of culture. They don't know how to ask about a culture when they're going through their interview process. But what has kept you at Starbucks, and how can other service members in our audience find that same success and longevity in their next career? I mean, what were some of the things that Starbucks did, and what are some of the things that you had to do to make sure that you stayed there, other than the fact that you've been following the company for a very long time and very excited about them? Not everyone can do that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, obviously the passion for what you're doing is key, but you can sort of do that anywhere. Parts are parts, no matter what type they are. So I could easily choose another company, but I choose to stay with Starbucks because a lot of reasons. One, I have an amazing team of people that I work with, and they all, if you were to interview all of them, they would sound a lot like me, I think. They just very much support the values and the culture of the company. And even to the point where, we've been called culture keepers of Starbucks because we just love it so much. And I think also one of the big things I would say is coming out of the military, I think a lot of times we have imposter syndrome. And so we can't make that transition because we don't give ourselves the time to assimilate into the company. And that can be really hard and scary. And also, it takes a good company to have the patience to help with that. So, military members, they have so much to offer. And sometimes we don't think about that when we're in the military. We just think we're just doing a job and, that's what we're supposed to do. And then we go home for the day. And it's the same in the corporate culture, but you have so many different leadership skills. You have all of education that you have completed. You have all of these trainings, that you bring value to the company. And I think a lot of times people just don't remember that. And I think for the company side, Starbucks has a program. It's called the Armed Forces Network. So that's really, a place where all people from, previous military service, can come together and we talk about things, we celebrate things, we celebrate and observe Veterans Day and Memorial Day, and we do things to, for the month of the military child. So a lot of the things that we would do in the military, in the Navy, we do that at Starbucks too. And I think having that as a little family inside of a big company is really helpful for veterans who are transitioning.
I agree. I mean, it's something that anytime I was at a TAP presentation or an ACAP presentation, I really talked about, at that time, for the last 15, 20 years, talking to people about the buddy system, having some kind of buddy system, telling companies that, invite your current employees who are veterans to partner up and buddy with the incoming veterans, because you have to provide some kind of network that replaces the network that they had before. Someone who's always going to have your back, someone who's going to explain corporate culture to you and explain that when you walk into the boardroom, you're not going to be able to look at the insignia on the lapels or on the shoulders to decide who you salute. So I think that that's really commendable that Starbucks has done that. Let's switch gears a little bit. I understand you're a mom.
I am.
And you love kids and education, and maybe in another life you would have been a teacher. I love it how we all think about what we would have done otherwise. So tell us about your volunteer work as a youth program coordinator for Compass USA. What inspired you to give back this way, in addition to, full-time job, being a mom, and now you're volunteering as well? How does that work, and what has it been like?
My husband would tell you I'm a little bit crazy, but my philosophy is we have four kids, so what's a few more? Uh, but no, in all honesty, I've always done a lot of volunteerism with children. I became a mom pretty late in life because of the military. I waited and waited for the right time, which let me tell you, there is no right time, especially if you're a woman in the Navy. So yeah, I originally started volunteering. I would volunteer at orphanages in Italy, and I did some Young Life, as some volunteer time in the military as well, and also some campfire. I was campfire leader for 8 years, and so then I started working with Compass USA actually just by chance. And I had a friend who was hosting a Japanese high school student, and our oldest daughter, she was a senior that year, and she had asked if we could maybe be like an exchange sister kind of thing to help her with have a buddy when she went to high school here in America. And so we were like, yeah, definitely, that would be great. Let's do it. Well, it turned out that she couldn't host the Japanese student for the year because life happened. And so she had asked if I knew anybody that could do it. And I said, well, let's see if we can do it. So we went through the process, and before we knew it, we had Shiho living here at the house with us from Okinawa, Japan. And it was the most amazing experience for our family. She was so perfect for our family, and we all just really grew to love her. We still love her. Are still in contact with her, and I just thought that what would have happened if Shiho hadn't landed with our family? What would her experience have been like? What would she take back to Japan with her if that experience didn't go how she had hoped? And so I started to get involved with the program Compass USA. It's a exchange program, and that's what I do. I find families who are willing to host a student, whether it's a short term or a long term. And I do the interviews and find the placement and work with the families from the different host countries. And then hopefully I make their beginning experience and amazing for them. And yeah, that's why I sort of started. So it's all thanks to Shiho. So
So you, it sounds like, love to do my favorite thing, which is networking. Uh, and not everyone loves to network. And it also seems to be the thing that is not taught in the military. So I know that whenever I would present at any of the transition panels, I was like, guys, you got to learn how to network. Turn to the person next to you, exchange deets. Let's connect here. Let's network here. And people just looked at me like I had three heads. But that's what people usually do when they look at me. So, were there any key networking moments that sort of shaped your journey in either the military or civilian world? And what are the first steps you would suggest to people coming out of the military that are nervous about starting their networking?
yeah, I think for me, I'm just a talker. So everyone who, like you said, is at these events and they're just sort of in their own bubble, I just will randomly start talking to them, and before you know it, we're Facebook friends or LinkedIn or something. And I think it can be as simple as that. It's just as simple as a conversation. That's really what networking is, and just having the courage to have that conversation. So not everyone is able to do that, and I think just remembering that your network is as small. It can be as small as your family. So your family and your friends, they know people and who know people who know people. And I can't tell you how many times I have relied on my network for things in this life. And I think even almost by chance, sometimes when you're talking to somebody, you don't realize they're the CEO of a company. You just think that they're enjoying the same music you're enjoying at a venue. And I think you, Kathleen, you said something, and I think you were so right. The mission is the humans. The mission is human, and we're all here on this planet in this life together, and everybody has something to offer. And I think networking is just a way of connecting with that. And the same for me. I try to help as many people as I can. They want a certain coffee to come back to Starbucks. I try to explain to them I do parts, not coffee flavors. But in all reality, I do try to, if we have a position open or something like that, or I think they're a good fit, I'll contact them. And I think also as a networker, you need to be the person to reach out, not always the person reaching out. I think is where I've found success in networking. It's really not scary. It's just talking.
And I think the one thing, as we're trying to impart some tips to our audience, I know it would probably be so easy to type it in AI and blast everyone. I can't tell you over the 20 odd years that I've been in the community how many of these cut and paste messages I've gotten on LinkedIn. And how many of them are they just drop their resume in, have a blank generic message that said, "Can you find me a job?" That's not networking. No matter who tells you it is, that is not networking. So please do not connect with someone and then immediately ask for a job, a resume review, or something else. It's a lot more subtle. And don't just network because you need to find a job. Network because you want to really connect with key people and realize that networking takes time. It's like a garden. You have to cultivate it. You have to wait through the seasons. So let's sort of bring this all back, talk about, your transition and what advice would you pass on to someone who is preparing for their transition?
I think one piece of advice I would give is to just be open-minded. Sometimes in the military, we get so regimented and so routine that we take that with us when we transition, and we lose a lot of opportunities because we were not open-minded. Sometimes it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. Maybe you're a captain and you're transitioning and you think you're going to go straight to a CEO role at a company. If you do, that's great, and congratulations to you. But for the most part, it's not that simple. You really have to be flexible. You have to be willing to take something that might not look exactly like you thought it would look like, and then take the time to learn it, and then move up or move out if you need to, if it's not a good fit for you, and not to be afraid. Not to be afraid to stay and give it a try, but also not to be afraid to go and move on to something else if it's not what you thought it was going to be. But give it a chance. I think that would probably be one of my biggest pieces of advice.
Well, Stephanie, this has been delightful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I am so glad that we finally got a chance to catch up and that you were able to be flexible with your schedule. So thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Kathleen, for reaching out to me. I talked a little bit about that imposter syndrome, and I was surprised. I was surprised somebody wanted to hear my story, and I couldn't believe it. So thank you for taking the time to reach out to me, and I really appreciate that.
Everyone's, got their own story, and I want to bring these stories to the community. So thank you. So it was really great talking to Stephanie today. And it is interesting because, yes, I was stalking her on LinkedIn. I looked at her background. I looked at what she did in the Navy, and I just thought it'd be a really great example of how you can translate your military career and logistics and operations into a large scale organization. I think the one benefit for her is that she really enjoyed and had always wanted to work for Starbucks and studied them inside and out, especially through our MBA program. But I also like that she shared that networking was so important. It's, as previous guests and I have talked about, it's one thing that is not shared. In the military, you network within your ranks, but you don't network across different branches within the different levels. So understand you're going to have to get uncomfortable with networking, but it's going to be the best part of your transition. So that is the end of our story today. Be sure to share this episode with your fellow service members. Hit for more stories that we'll be sharing with you in the future. And I hope that you'll join us in the future. Take care.